going to be shooting a video that we're going to be using in worship right away. So we're excited about him having. So if you will, help me by welcoming Bill Eagan.
All right, guys. I may look a little strange to some of you.
Amen.
Get used to it. Because when we get to heaven, I'm going to be there with you.
Yeah.
All right. Who believes that God is a great God? Come on, everybody. All right. I'm going to give you about 15-minute story that takes me about 2 hours to do. So put your seatbelts on. This is going to go fast. All right. To give you an idea of what we did, use your imagination here for just a little bit. When you're at the Strawberry Festival, all the vendors have their little booths set up. Okay? Close your eyes for a second. Think of the same thing. Think of all the booths that are there. Now think of 10 times more people, 20 times more noise, and motorcycles all around you. That'll give you the effect of what it is. And as you're wandering through the crowd, looking at all of this motorcycle stuff, thinking about what you're going to do that day, what you're going to see, what doodad you need for your bike. This guy walks up to you and does this. Hey man, how you doing? Can you help me out? We have got this motorcycle we are trying to give away. Just takes you 3 minutes. You got 3 minutes?
Yeah.
All right, great, man. Let me introduce you to this other guy. Then he points to me. I walk up. Hey, what's your name?
Mike.
Mike, my name's Bill. How you doing?
All right.
It's good to see you. Did they tell you what we're doing?
Yeah.
Okay, we're giving away a bike, right?
All right.
Just takes you 3 minutes. I'm not selling you anything. I'm not going to put you in any kind of weird mailing list. I'm just going to tell you what Jesus has done for me. Can we do that?
Sure.
All right. Well, at that point, my story starts. I was essentially raised in church. I was born in the nursery, okay? Plain and simple. I was raised in church at the age of 8. Now, get this, it's kind of funny. This is a pause on my 3-minute story. At the age of 8, my brother and I were wrestling with the term, the age of accountability. 8 years old, why would you do that? I don't know. But we came to the realization that, I'm a sinner, as we all have. And I needed Jesus. So unpause the pause button. I started my story about 8 years old, came to Jesus, said a simple little prayer, understood that the things that I was doing was called sin. Sin was not going to get me to heaven. So I did a simple little prayer. I asked Jesus to come into my life, be my boss, be with me for the rest of my life. Simple little prayer, there's nothing magical about it. From there, I grew up in church, was never a bad kid. My teenage years, again, never a bad kid, always involved in church. But as we grow and we become the men that we're going to be, I started compromising. One compromise led to another. Pretty soon, 10 years went by, and I hadn't stepped in church. I was that kind of Christian that everybody hated. I was a Christian on Sunday, but hey, Monday through Saturday was all mine. Some of you guys know what that means. So I got to the point where all of those little goals that we set up for our lives, you achieve that goal, there's that sense of satisfaction. You're becoming the man that you wanted to be. Well, those goals, yeah, they were great, and it was short-lived because I was living for myself. I didn't understand, or I couldn't understand what God had for me because I was doing for me. I didn't need God, but that's okay because I had God in my back pocket. I had that little Jesus bottle that whenever I got in trouble, I just rubbed that little bottle, and I have my little God genie that takes care of me whenever I need him. And then when I'm done, put him back in my pocket. That was the kind of Christian I was. But there was one goal that I had set for myself that was, now my wife isn't going to like this, but that goal was above my wife and is above my children. That was my first Harley Davidson. A couple of you guys actually got to see it. It's a gorgeous bike. That was that goal. When I achieved that, that was it. That was where I wanted to be. I had become the success that I saw my father that he was. And now we could be equals, kind of. My dad was my hero. But those are short-lived. As what would happen, I have a patch. It says Harley Davidson, it's got broken wings. That means you've been in an accident. I earned this patch the hard way. I went into a curve. I remember seeing the curve. Then I woke up, couldn't breathe, and it was in a lot of pain. I went down to my left side, broke 5 ribs. My collarbone was in 3 pieces. Thank God I was wearing a helmet because I busted the helmet from the front about 3/4 of the way to the back. I had a concussion because it knocked me out. You think that woke me up? No, because I had all the answers. Again, I had Jesus in my back pocket. pull him out when I need it, put him back in. So we went on from there, put Jesus back in my pocket, and it got to the point where I finally realized, and I can get with you later, and there's a whole, God's just been working at that point. You get to the point where you're sick and tired of being sick and tired. I had left the church for a couple of years, came back, started putting relationships back together, had a couple of brothers that still believed in me, that knew what I could do and wouldn't give up on me. So as we started praying, we went through a Bible study, and I can't remember the guy's name.
Tony Evans.
Tony Evans, Kingdom Men. What does it take to be a kingdom man? That started allowing me to let go of the anger and the resentment that I had towards God and the anger problem that I had developed. All right, now, I've gotten off my 3-minute story, doggone it. Well, anyway, at some point in there, you just basically, I prayed, Father, forgive me for the things that I've done. Forgive me for living for myself, to being that man that I wanted to be. Come back and be the boss that you should have been so many years ago. And I opened up every part of my life at that point. Since that day, it has been a roller coaster ride straight up. I know when I lay my head in bed at night, God gave me a purpose that day, and I knocked it out of the park. I achieved that purpose. And I know when I get up tomorrow, it's going to start all over again. But I have the confidence now to know that I am going to be that man that God wanted me to be. And it came from just a simple prayer. Jesus, forgive me. Come into my life, be my boss. Mike, have you ever made that prayer? Have you said those simple words? Yeah. Okay. At that point, when they say yes, you got two things. You say, tell me about it. Or if they say no, well, we can take care of that today. All right. That took a little more than 3 minutes. I'll put some extra stuff in. That simple little story allowed us to do so. And I wrote the numbers down because, quite frankly, I couldn't believe them. All right. We had 319 volunteers come from Oklahoma all the way to Virginia Beach, and all points in between. And they weren't all Faith Riders. They were church members of several other churches. So this is not just a Faith Riders thing. They went one-on-one telling their 3-minute story to 4,923 individual people.
Wow.
And here's the funny thing about it. There were 2 12-year-old teenagers that kicked everybody's butt. Between the two of them, there were about 25 souls saved. Between those 2 kids. And the 12-year-old boy, was his first time sharing his testimony publicly, and he did it to bikers. Was not intimidated, and I think he was the bulk. He had 17, 18 people, souls just for himself. So we wound up with 409 salvations for bikers from Daytona Beach. They come down to Daytona in a Satan stronghold. They go to the place where Satan not only has this stuff out and it's celebrated or it's encouraged, it's not only that, it's celebrated. These things that we wouldn't show our families to, there are parts of that area that I wouldn't even go to because it's not proper for me to even see some of this stuff. But they're going to Daytona to partake in all of that. And they see these people talk about Jesus. 419 of them are now got their names in the book of life because of what 319 people did. And it's that simple. All right. Also, I don't want to leave you. I have a couple stories that my journey, that's basically what I've been calling it. And I've been like this for 2 weeks now. You can't shut me up.
Amen to that.
Yeah. Personal story. I got 2 stories that I feel are just crazy important. On Saturday, we worked the tent Saturday morning, Friday morning, Saturday morning, and Sunday morning. Saturday morning, we show up early, and I talked to a few people, and it was kind of slow, but it was building quick. As I'm standing there in the batter's up box, that's the only thing I can call it, I was getting to talking to a guy. His name was Doug. He was from St. Cloud. We got into, small talk, more or less, just talking about the area, our families, the growth. And somebody came in the tent, and he goes to talk to him. So I'm standing there saying this little prayer to myself, God, please don't make me make a fool out of you or anybody else. I'm as nervous as can be. And guy turns around and says, hey, talk to my buddy Bill over there. Okay, I'm up. I go talk to this guy. And it was the same thing. Hey, what's your name? I couldn't tell you what his name was. He was from somewhere else. So I did my best redneck deal. I said, boy, you ain't from around here, are you? He laughed a little bit and said, no, he's from Sweden. I said, well, that's good. How long you been here? Kind of small talk. He said he'd been there for several days, and they were just there for Daytona. Okay, great. And I went completely blank. I didn't know my name. I didn't know where I was. And it became evident later why that happened. So I asked him a question that, as you're witnessing somebody that you don't know even has a relationship with Christ, and to be real with you, Europe, Christianity is on fast decline in Europe. So I started with the worst question you could ask: how's your relationship with Jesus Christ? God bailed me out. He goes, my English not good. Okay, well, I make a joke. As we get uncomfortable, we go to humor. I said, well, that just means I have to speak slower and louder. You'll understand me. He chuckled a little bit. Okay, and I looked around. I'm looking for the guy who's running the tent, our national director at this point. He's nowhere to be found, but that's okay. God was there.
Amen.
So I look back at him, and I said something to him, and again, I can't even remember. And he, parlez-vous français? I said, parlez-vous français? I barely parlez-vous English, you know what I mean? So I look at him, and the best redneck thing, this is God's honest truth, I looked the man dead in the face, and I said, you know, I only speak 2 languages, English and redneck, and they ain't always the same. That's the response I was looking for. But that's not what I got. He looked at me as dumbfounded as he possibly could, because he wasn't understanding nothing I was saying. Well, at this point, big red-headed guy is panicked. I turn around, and this time I audibly call, Mike! Where's Mike? He's Mike's national director. He'll know what to do. He's nowhere to be found. So I look over at Doug, and he's looking at me. Again, just met Doug. He smiles. I said, Doug, you know French? He says, a little bit. Wow, okay, that was number 1. So he gets over there talking to the guy. And I don't know how many of you were around on the day of Pentecost, but I would imagine it was probably a pretty good time they were having. I got a picture of that, just a little bit. Doug walks up, says a couple words. There was a little stumble. He said something back. I get caught up even thinking about it now. And it was a stumble, then they started walking. Pretty soon they're carrying on a full-blown conversation. I'm in awe, so I step back and I'm just watching this. They went on for about 5 minutes or so. And they got done, and I said, Doug, do you realize what just happened? He's like, no. What are you talking about? I said, this guy came to Daytona from Sweden. And in a 20-mile radius, you're probably the only guy here that can tell him about Jesus. And he was dumbfounded. I cannot believe it. So God opens that door, just a crack, just to give me a hint of what he was doing. And I said, what are the chances? What are the chances this is going to happen to me, a truck driving, redneck, long-haired, hippie-looking dude, that God would take that little bit and strengthen my faith in such a way that I would have never dreamed. There's things that's been happening with Faith Riders. There are things that's happening in my personal life within the last 8 months or so, about 8 months, that if we had an hour, I couldn't tell you what God has done for me. I am not the same man that I was those 8 months ago. You know, if you took, I tell everybody, I'm famous, I'm world famous. Okay, well how? Okay, if you look up in the dictionary, introvert, it describes me so well. That may as well be my picture. An introvert is somebody who does not like to talk to people. I don't like being around people. I look the way I do because it throws people off, to be quite honest. A lot of bikers do that. They'll look like these tough guys, but they're as soft as they can be on the inside because they don't want you to get through. And I didn't want anybody to get through. I didn't want people talking to me. Well, then I went to another section that kind of gave me an idea further into who I was. Not only am I an introvert, I was an apathetic introvert. That means I didn't care. To be a Christian, those are 2 dangerous things. Number 1, I don't like you. Number 2, I don't want to tell you about Jesus. That was my reality. Until about 8 months ago. It came down to just a single prayer. When I learned how to pray this prayer and put faith in it, I said, God, and we learned this through the study that we had and through what we wanted God to do with the Faith Riders chapter here at this church and this ministry. Father, give me the strength to get out of my own way. When you put God in the proper position, you put yourself in that proper position. Now, to think that get out of your own way is a sense of weakness. As men, we're built to take care of things, to be that guy, to fearless and move on and admit no defeat. No, that's not what being a man is. A man is about being honest about your limitations. Someone said to me once that I use Christianity as a crutch. Christians, they all just use Christianity. No, I don't use Christianity as a crutch. I use Jesus as a wheelchair. Now, to be honest, I'm talking one of those motorized wheelchairs that's got a V8 and these lights all over it and goes 200 miles an hour. But it's a wheelchair. Because my Jesus supports me every day of my life. Because I cannot do it alone. And if I'm lying to myself, that's not a manly thing. Because once you start lying to yourself, then you start believing it. That's dangerous because God has got something for you. You may not know what it is now. I didn't know. There's no way 6 months ago I'm going to be standing up here and talking to all of y'all. Because a week before we left Daytona, I was having panic attacks about what I was going to tell people. Because I'm as white bread as they come. There's nothing special about me. I did not have this amazing conversion. I wasn't a meth dealer, a meth addict, and just Jesus snapped his fingers and I was healed. That wasn't my testimony. So I saw no point in it. We had a bike fest out here. And 2 people came in the tent. It was my first time ever sharing my 3-minute story. And I knew that they were Christians when they walked in, so there was no pressure. Now, this is supposed to take 3 minutes. 30 seconds into it, I'm stuttering. 45 seconds into it, my mouth has gone completely dry. 50 seconds into it, I forgot where I was. I had no idea how to talk to those people. And they were gracious, and they smiled, and they said, it's okay, and they shared with their testimony. And we had a good time. Until, again, it goes right back to knowing your place where God has put you and giving God every corner of your life. Again, it goes right back to having Jesus in my back pocket. Having God as a genie God that's sitting in that bottle, that whenever I needed him, I could rub that bottle and God would jump out and help me. But when it was all over, I put God back in his bottle, put him back on the shelf, close the door, see you next time. Well, as you can see, I'm not that guy anymore. Our God is gracious, loving, and merciful. If he can take me, turn me around, turn me inside out, take everything that I was, mold it in more of a picture of what he is. If he can do that in 6 months, what's he going to do in a year? Who am I going to be then? What am I going to achieve? Not through anything that I can do or anything of my strength. It's all about God. And there's nothing I can add to that. Tommy?
Thank you.